Nej, snart tror jag. Nu står det recording started.
Yes, så nu är vi här levande, helt levande höll jag på att säga. Så att vi spelar in det här också, så det här poddavsnittet som du lyssnar på nu kan du också titta på. Men nu ska vi ju, varför vi gör det här nu så man också kan titta på det här poddavsnittet, det är ju för att vi ska prata med en fantastisk kille, Nate, som vi träffades i Sedona, som jobbar med Operation Underground Railroad, och han kommer absolut alldeles strax in här, så vi ska bara prata med honom.
Och det är ju en annan sak också, Anette. Du och jag är faktiskt i olika länder nu. Så
Yes.
vi gör på ett annat sätt också.
Det är sant. En i USA, jag i Sverige och du i Portugal.
Jajamensan. Så välkommen till 100% ansvar. Vi expanderar som vanligt. Vi bara kör på.
Yes, nu kör vi. Släpp in Nate.
Men då tar vi in Nate Lewis. Och det här är också första avsnittet som vi kör på engelska. Ja, så det här blir lite roligt. Det kanske blir lite svengelska ibland, men vad tusan. Det viktiga är att göra, som vi alltid säger. Så nu ska vi ta in Nate. Welcome, Nate.
Hello. I'm sorry, I don't speak very good Swedish, so I only can speak in English. I'm so sorry.
Don't be.
You're happy you're here, and we try to speak that English with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you guys again.
Yeah. Nice to see you. Yeah.
We haven't known each other for such a long time, but it's felt. I remember the first time when we talked to each other. It's like, wow, I love that guy. I also think I said that to you, Nate. I think I love you.
Thank you.
Wow, it's great.
Yeah. I know you mentioned we met each other in Sedona at an event there, and that's kind of how the first conversation started. And then it's been nice to have several conversations. I think there might be an event coming up here, maybe, possibly. I don't know if you guys have talked about that.
Yeah, we're talking about it a lot there. We dream about it, we're talking about it. It's like in the head all the time.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Nate, can you tell us anything about your story, what you did before, and how it's become you started to work with this fantastic organization, Operation Underground Railroad?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the organization. First, we're a nonprofit. We basically provide resources, training, equipment to law enforcement in the United States and all over the world, in over 30 countries, to fight human trafficking. We specialize in child sex trafficking and exploitation. So that's kind of a brief overview. There's a lot more to it than that, but we do go undercover. We have special agents that work with local law enforcement, police, to go undercover and train them as well, and then arrest these predators, and then start a healing journey for these survivors, and through our aftercare, and we even have adoption piece of what we do too. But that's a bit about Operation Underground Railroad. I came about this in an interesting way. I actually I worked in film and television for 20 years, and Jim Caviezel is a good friend of mine I worked with and collaborated with for a decade, and he played Tim Ballard in a feature film called The Sound of Freedom, which comes out in theaters in the U.S. on the 4th of July. And he turned me on to Tim, and we kind of started following, my wife and I, OUR. And then I was doing some shows with a lot of followers, and so they wanted me to come down and do some video and meet Tim, and then that's kind of how I met Tim. And I left, and I told my wife, I've met a lot of amazing people in my life, but I've never met so many in one place. And I knew that I just wanted to be a part of something. I'd already had a 20-year career, and I kind of was tired of being gone on location all the time for months at a time. And I always had this thing in my heart. I could tell you a different story about how this led to me in 2004 about wanting to make a difference, especially with children. And this just seemed like this incredible opportunity for me I'm a storyteller. So I think Tim and the team like the fact that, stories is when we share the truth with people and educate them of what we're doing. it really moves people, it moves their heart. And I think it also educates them on the problem of what's going on. And so after a few months of just meeting and talking, they brought me on board, and so I'm here. I love what I do. I love our cause. I appreciate you guys having me here to be able to share some stories, talk about what we do, and that's kind of how I came about this. And I don't do a lot of the undercover work. I've been on several operations. I can share some of those. I do love going and working with the children's after, and the aftercare part of what we do, and that is near and dear to my heart. Children are just, to me, I've always been childlike, and I'm drawn to children, and I can connect with children, and I just love just being there with them, and they bring a smile to me. And honestly, I feel like we're called OUR Rescue, and a lot of times we go in and we feel like we're the ones that have been rescued, because they bring so much light and so much hope to us. They, even though they've been through so much, and they're in different places in their journey, man, they're still childlike, and they have that innocence and that smile and that wonder in their eyes, and it actually it can be healing and hard at some point too. But that's a little bit about me and my background and what I do, and there's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of.
So what did you do in the film industry? You was a storytelling, you was a producer, or what did you do it was in Hollywood, or what?
Yeah, I worked on some of the biggest movies and television shows in the world. Traveled the world for 16 years on location, working with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. I started out on the bottom, worked my way up, and eventually I had my own production company, and I would buy rights to films or books and adapt those into either a miniseries or feature films. But I worked closely with a couple of actors for a long time, similar to like being a manager, kind of publicist, kind of all incorporating thing, ran basically their brand and their production company. And I did that for quite a long time, until I decided that at some point I wanted to do my own thing. And then I was able to start my own production company and go that route. And it was great at the time. I was younger, and had a lot of fun. I saw the world, and I would live in foreign countries for a long time. And I, that go back to, that was my very first experience in 2004 on a movie called Sahara. And we were in the Sahara Desert for a really long time for most of that filming of that. And it was eye-opening to me. It changed my life of how I viewed life. How sometimes you think about all the things that you don't have. Oh, I don't have that. Oh, I want that. And that was a real 180 for me to see all the things that I had, because it was the first time I saw how little people had, and made me appreciate everything that I had. And then that changed every experience moving forward for the next 16 years, living in foreign countries, and in really becoming almost a local in a sense, and seeing how people live and giving me a different perspective, but knowing that someday I want to give back, and do something more than what I was doing. And now I feel this is the reality. It's kind of a weird way to explain it, but I used to make millions of dollars for other people, and now I get to raise millions of dollars to help rescue kids from horrific situations. And it's so rewarding. And I know at the end of the day, I really, truly have made a difference in someone's life. I've changed the world for them. Even if it's just their world that I changed, I was able to help change their world. And that to me is more rewarding than any dollar amount or any credit on any movie or whatever. It's just when you see those people, these human lives face to face, and it's hard to explain the reality of them coming to life. Really, that's what it looks like to me. They're coming to life in that moment, because they're in such darkness, and the abuse they're being in, held in. And so I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Wow. Yeah, and for me also, because when you're working in the film industries, it's like a movie and nothing is for real, but this is for real. It's something meaningful that you're doing. So it's yeah, I understand. And I also want to, because we met in Sedona when Annette and I was on a Kyle C's event, and Tim, who started the Operation Underground Railroad, he was there as one of the guests on the scene. And I think, Nate, you were also there.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were some of you guys, or some girls also were there. So because before Annette and I went to Sedona, we said, because we had this event on the 1st of October coming up, the Changemaker Day in Stockholm. And we said, okay, we don't know really the reason, because we know that, okay, we want to donate all the money from that event to some organization, but we don't know. But we have, both of us have that kind of strong feeling that something will happen this weekend. So
Wow.
that's why. And when Tim was on the stage, it's like, wow, that's the reason.
Oh.
So it was so beautiful. And then we contact you afterwards, and so here we are. Here we
Yes.
are.
You know, you guys are very lucky to be able to sit in on that, because I've been with Tim at a lot of these for years, and I've never seen anything like that. Kyle just had that. Just, I don't know how that was happened and how it was created, but how Tim, you know, told that story that he's never told before about when he was a young boy and how he was almost taken and kidnapped, him and his brother, and that's what started this whole thing. And I didn't even know that about until that day.
Yeah, it was so vulnerability, and he was like, yeah, it was so wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
Yeah,
it was almost like he had forget it himself, you know, because he pressed it away. So then it was like coming up. That's the reason. Yeah,
Kyle was able to get that out of him. And I think what also was interesting is Tim discovered, you know, for the audience that hasn't seen this, you can watch this documentary on YouTube or on Amazon Prime. It's called Operation Toussaint, Toussaint. But it's when he left, when Tim Ballard left the government, just for whatever reasons, because there was a lot of restrictions that he couldn't go, and he had these cases that he wanted to go rescue all these kids, and then the government pulled him back, and he ended up doing that, which is the Sound of Freedom movie is based off of this called, and we have a documentary called Triple Take, but we were able to rescue over 120 kids in 1 hour. And Tim went on to do these first couple of operations, and one was in Haiti, and that's where these kids were, where he heard about this boy who had gone missing, and they thought they could find him. And when he had to go tell the dad, we didn't find your son, but it was really, truly the dad that said, hey, if I had to sacrifice my son to rescue these 26 children, it was worth it. And Tim understood it to a certain degree, but he also didn't really understand it, I think, until that day when Kyle helped him get to that. Like, I think he had to tell Kyle it's okay for the person to take his brother, because that's what was holding on to him. It was that they tried to take his brother, and that it's okay because all that happened so that Tim would go do this. You know, so Tim would be able to, you know, we've rescued over 7,000 children. Well, and we've been a part of many more than that we're not directly involved with, that we've helped train law enforcement, give them the equipment to go do these online investigations and things. We don't know how many thousands that is. You know, and the number that I love to talk about is the number that don't need to be rescued, because we've arrested almost 6,000 predators, and it's said that over 100 victims per predator will be abused. So one predator can abuse 100 people in their lifetime. So imagine times that by 6,000 that we've helped put behind bars. You know, you're looking at a pretty large number of kids that don't know they need to be rescued from human trafficking of whatever sort. So yeah, pretty amazing experience, I would say you guys got to have. It's my favorite experience I've had, you know, here. It was truly remarkable, you know.
And Tim is have so, you can really see his big heart is so big, and he's like tough but also so soft in both way, like it's so, and you can really feel what you're doing, all of you, like it's for real. It's just you need to doing that. So that's amazing. So so now we have a lot of different speakers on the stage on the 1st of October. So a lot of people spread this word around the whole Sweden. So
Wow.
So it's not just me and Annette. It's more and more people, and all of them just this is a good thing to do. And for us, it's also that everyone can do something. I mean, and maybe not everyone needs to rescue kids, but we need to do something good. We need to have the courage and the heart and start to do something, not just sitting and complain and like be the victim. So I think it's like speak the truth and start to do something, because we need it. The whole world need it.
It's true. You're right. And I think that sometimes people feel like they can't do anything, like, oh, I'm helpless. But the reality is that we have specially trained operators all over the world in the region that we were discussing earlier. One of our regional directors over Europe was just in Stockholm meeting with the police there. And we're going to hopefully, they didn't tell us no. What we really do is provide resources, really expensive equipment for unlocking phones. And then we train them on how to do online investigations, because a lot of this has gone online. You can do your case mostly online and set that up. But the thing is people think, what can I do? What can I do? But we have people, we're a nonprofit and funded truly by individuals like yourself. And we thank you so much for putting this event on. But that's how people can really make a difference. And I know it's sometimes people are like, well, I'm giving to a nonprofit. What are they doing? All of our financials are online. We try to stay about 80 to 85 cents of each dollar goes towards the mission. We have the experts in the field that are doing it. And we have real stories. We have impacts that we can share. And you can see that you truly can make a difference for someone. You can help law enforcement put these guys away. You can be a part of that. And I think that the confusion comes where people think they're giving to a nonprofit, like they're giving to us. And the reality is they're not. They're giving through us. We're just the conduit. We know we have the relationships all over the world. We have the right people in place. This is our 10th year, so we've vetted this. All over the world. We now have a really amazing reputation because we do come in and we do the work that governments can't really do, just because of the red tape or whatever you may call it. And so you really can make a difference, and people say like, well, how much? And the thing is like $10 in US dollars really does make a difference. People don't think so, but that goes a long ways in some of these countries that we're in, for care, whether it be food or last week, for example, I was in South America, and there was a woman with 6 children, and they don't get to go to school because she can't afford a clothes, just a uniform. And so when we heard about her, we took her and her kids and we bought them all new clothes for a uniform, tops and bottoms. It was maybe $100 for all of them. So that $10 bought a shirt so that a child could go to get education, which is going to get them a long ways in life. Not only giving that gift to the child, but to that parent. The parent, she was in tears, really, like that her children, not just one, all of them in all these ranges of age are going to be able to go to school now. So there is a huge difference that can be made. And imagine, I don't know how many people are watching, but if everybody did $10 a month, that's a huge amount of money, that we can really provide the care that people need long term. And we're not just giving them food, shelter, and water, which we do. We're getting them vocational training. We're not just teaching them how to make a bracelet. We're teaching them how to be an entrepreneur, to start a business or a trade of some sort, so that they don't end up back right where they were when we rescued them, which is a high percentage if they don't have some sort of opportunity on the tail end of the rescue. And by the way, we don't do a rescue until the aftercare is ready and set up. And they come on the heels, because usually the children think they're in trouble or they're scared because cops are coming in, right, and arresting people. And so we have people there explain to them that, no, this is the beginning. This is what hope looks like. And healing is going to start now. And then that's when we offer them all these resources. Some of them, we do reunite with their families if we can, and if that's the best situation. But sometimes their families are involved, and but we always try to think what's best for them. We meet them wherever they are, and help them as much as we can for life. We never leave them. If they want us when they're 50, 60 years old, we'll still be there for them.
Yeah. So. And you working in approximately 40 countries at the moment?
Our aftercare, we work with 150 organizations in over 40 countries in the world. Yeah. We've done operations. We work with law enforcement and governments in over 30 countries around the world. We're growing that quickly. It's just the word of mouth right now is really just lit us on fire all over Europe, Central America, South America, and Southeast Asia. When certain law enforcement realize, oh my gosh, they have the stories to say like, hey, have you heard of these guys? They just did this for us and this and this and that. And then other departments are going, well, can you introduce us? And so now we're just expanding. I'd imagine by the end of the year, we'll be doing operations in over 40 countries. It's just growing so fast now.
So it's also a lot in Europe, because some people think it's just not in Europe, not in Sweden, not in Europe. It's just down in the more poor country, but that's not the truth then.
It's not true. It's not true. Yeah. And unfortunately, right now, a lot of it's going online. And when COVID happened and the borders shut down to some of these places that were considered sex tourist places, these guys had to still make their money somehow. And so they started doing things online, but also children these days. I didn't grow up in an era of cell phones and a new app every 6 months coming out and a new social media platform. And so I don't understand it, but kids these days, they know better than their parents, right? And what's unfortunate, when I was a kid, it used to be, don't take candy from a stranger and watch out for the creepy guy at the playground, because the guys would go to where the kids are. But now kids aren't on the playground as much. They're on their phones and they're online. And these predators feel safe wherever they're at in their home, and they have a fake identity. They create a fake profile, and they're talking and chatting to these young girls or even young boys as a fake person their age, and they're convincing them and slowly grooming them to start sending pictures, and then it turns into a mess. Some of the worst things I've seen is they bribed this boy. The boy thought it was a girl and started sending pictures, and then they revealed their identity and said, no, now you owe us $1,000 or we're going to send these out to all your friends. Yeah. And then he ends up getting so scared and he can't tell his parents, and he commits suicide. And that's not how it always ends, but that's just one example of how this type of bullying, I think it's bullying, is taking place online, but it's trafficking. And then that's just where it starts. And then they go meet these people, they fall in love, and then they're get them addicted to drugs. And now they have to work to earn money. And that's one way. There's so many ways this is happening, though. Girls are being tricked into jobs when the borders shut down and people weren't traveling in these tourist countries. They needed to work. And so these guys would trick them into coming and working at their luxury hotel, which is not a luxury hotel. It's a brothel. And they take their passports, and now they can't leave, and they have this debt they can never pay off and get out of. And now they're in the sex trade. It's...
Oh, it's over. So you have kind of really good, I don't know how to say it in English, but you have kind of good system to track this down, this on the internet, like what you can. And I heard you give that to all the countries, to the police enforcement for free.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So there's a couple of components to this. So one, we provide the training so the police know how to go onto the dark web, because there's new dark web sites coming up all the time, because they know they're getting caught. They're getting, we're catching on to these sites. And so you're always trying to train, and you're always trying to also, the important thing about online investigations and the dark web is you can't entrap people. Like, all the laws are different, especially online. The laws start to get muddy in different areas. Some places there's no laws, in a lot of these countries, there's not a lot of digital laws out there. And so training them, but also giving them the equipment, because this is the important part, is when you get a phone, someone's phone like this, you have to unlock it. It's extremely expensive. If you can't get them to unlock it for you, you have to get unlocked so that you can find the other predator networks out there, but also the other victims that they've been abusing. So it's really important. And not only that, if you can unlock their computers and certain things, if they have child pornography or child sexual abuse materials, what we call it, that's just increases their sentence, so the more they have, the longer they go away for. And so it's really important that not only can they unlock these, but then they have to extract that information safely. And there's only a few software programs that can do that so the evidence stays sound. So you can do it and take it off of there, do an investigation, but keep the evidence sound so that it holds up in court. And then anybody who runs that software has to be certified too, so that they can testify in court. So now we help them get certified to run that type of software as well. And then we get, we get all these computers, laptops, phones and stuff. And we have teams that do this type of stuff for their digital forensics. They go into these things and they find all these networks, and then we can send that information to the authorities in that country that we're working with, if we're working in that country, so that they can now, and our teams in Asia or Europe or South America or South America, now they can focus on the American who's down there, or whoever. It doesn't have to be an American, but the American who had a network of the other network in that country, and they can target them and go after them there. So that's how we do a lot of our work. We have like a central intelligence hub of people on the internet that are finding these leads, and people going through evidence and finding other leads that lead us to networks that are out there.
Is it I'm wondering, I have a question. Is it a lot of kind of the same operation that you do in the world? Is it many kind of the same as Operation Underground Railroad, or is
you mean organizations?
Yeah, well, there's not there's a lot of organizations who do something in the fight against human trafficking. What makes us unique is that most of our regional directors over these countries came from our Homeland Security, and they have all the relationships with the embassies and the local police in these countries. And then we have a direct relationship to go in and provide the investigations team, and we're really providing them cases that they don't have to do a whole lot of work on, because we've already done the work for them. And then we are focused on the rescue. We definitely have an aftercare team, but like I said, we support 150 aftercare organizations, but specifically to human trafficking or sexual abuse. There's a difference between drug addiction, hunger, but when it comes to sexual abuse, there is a trauma-informed therapy that is very valuable for dealing with individuals who have had that form of trauma. But as far as the rescue, I would say there are nonprofits out there that do some sort of rescue. I can't really speak to exactly how they go about it. I still wonder how we do everything legally with law enforcement, with governments in their country. We don't do anything radical. We don't go vigilante. Everything is done by the law. These, they will be held up in court. Everything has to follow the procedures. So, and we don't consider a rescue a one-night rescue. If they end up back in trafficking, it's not a rescue. Where, I've heard of some organizations, pulling prostitutes off of a street and putting them into a hotel for the night. That's not really a rescue. So, there's people who raise awareness. There's people who do education. There's a lot of organizations that work in the aftercare facility, but our main focus is how do we arrest as many predators as we can? Number one, because that's a preventative effort. We think, you're preventing more people from getting abused. And that's also comes side to side with then rescue. Now we have the rescue, and then we allow the professionals who are trained, who have their facilities in their country, who speak their language, who know their culture, already set up. And, we bring them up to a certain standard. If they're not there, we can train them, we can give them resources, but we let them really lead with the healing part of it, but we check in once a quarter everywhere around the world. We have regional aftercare, and we have in-country aftercare as well. So they're constantly engaging and checking up and following through and seeing what they need. And these organizations, they want to have the highest standard because they know that if they do, they're going to get resources from us, right? And so they don't want to fall below a certain standard because they need our resources. And so, and they get other resources as well. It's not all of us, but I hope that answers your question.
That's clarified.
I also remember that Tim said in Sedona that when there has been like you did a big work in Ukraine in the when there are wars or there are some like earthquake or something in the nature, they also I call them the bad guys, or these are not just guys, it's also a woman. So they're there and they kidnap children, girls, because they pretend to be nice guys. Oh, come here, I can help you, and then that's correct.
That is correct. Yeah. And then unfortunately, I mentioned that documentary, and Tim ended up adopting the kids from Haiti that he went in on his first operation. But there were people who knew that kids were missing their parents, and so they just would paint the word orphanage on this home, and nice, innocent people thought, oh, I'll take this child to the orphanage because he's an orphan now. And they were putting them into the hands of people who were selling them for lots of money. And we saw in the Ukraine too, where there were guys, and they were pretty sketchy because at that point people were desperate. They need to get out. And so they trust people they normally wouldn't. They're strangers. We were strangers, but we have good hearts, and we're actually doing well, and we're actually transporting people to safety. But there are people there, and there were guys asking us, hey, we'll take the girls, but we don't even trust them, especially when the nonprofit just popped up, like they're a month old. And, so they do, when people are vulnerable in desperate situations, and how many children lost their parents in that war, there as well. Yeah, they're scared. They don't know what to do. They're in a vulnerable situation, and unfortunately people definitely take advantage of that, and it's extremely sad that they do. But they're greedy, and they're looking at how they can make money. And unfortunately right now, the drug trade, there's so much risk because there's 5 drug officers towards 1 trafficking officer, so the risk is 5 times as high. But you're investing into a product that's gone, and you have to reinvest, and then it's gone, and then reinvest. Whereas a human life, they're finding out that you invest into a human, and it's constantly making you revenue every day for years until they age out and are too old. So it's we as a society and governments need to see what they're doing. They're realizing, like, well, look at all the risk in drugs, and the profit isn't that great because I have to continue to reinvest. So that's why it's the fastest growing criminal enterprise, trafficking humans, because there's a demand and they need a supply, and there's not very much risk at all. No one's talking about it. They're starting to, thank goodness, but there's more people in slavery today than there's ever been in the history of our world. So why aren't we fighting it with that?
Yeah. So it's also, they do what you call organ, or they take the kidneys, what do you call how do you say it?
Organ harvesting.
Organ harvesting. Is that also they kill the kids and take the organs to sell them?
It's very true. Yeah, I would say comparatively, it's a very small percentage, but it definitely happens, and we have been involved with some pretty sick organizations that impregnate young girls to produce babies. The reality is this: if you're a very wealthy individual and you have a 2-year-old who needs a heart transplant quick, and the the heart is that big compared to a adult heart, and the likelihood of finding an adult sized heart versus a little infant heart is not comparable, right? Very, very few infant hearts available. So there's people who will pay a really high price. Actually, a 2-year-old heart is about $250,000 US on the black market. And so they are unfortunately doing this. It's one of the sickest things, there's we deal with child sacrifice as well. That's one of the sickest things as well. I think those are the two darkest, grotesque things that we work with that I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand any of it, but I mean, that's got to be the lowest of all lows, is to cut up a human baby.
So you mean like they have like a girl or a woman, and they make her pregnant, and then they take the kids after. So they kidnap the girl.
Yeah, they own the girl's trapped in a prison or warehouse, and then she gives birth, and now that baby is trapped too, and that baby's specifically, this is one case I'm telling you about, right? And that baby specifically is made for organs.
This is so sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so sick. But that's why we need to talk about it, because more people really know this is happening right now. I think just to raise the awareness, it's going to do something. Like, just raise the awareness was all. And you said it's more slavery right now, and it's never been in the world. It's so crazy. And how can't we know about it? Like, that's the scariest, I think. What's happening? Why we should talk about it every day in all over media, all over. I mean, it's so sick.
Yeah. Well,
and I also think in Europe we are like, and especially in Sweden, we are like, no, it's not happening here, because we are so safe and we are so good country, we are so proud, blah 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 blah. So please, Nate, tell all the Swedish people that it's happening also in Sweden.
It's happening everywhere. Yeah, there's a documentary too called "It's Happening Right Here." It's specifically about the United States, but if it's happening like that in the United States, it's happening pretty much anywhere. So it unfortunately is happening everywhere. And I think it's important to understand what trafficking really is. It's not always in a brothel, someone behind bars. That is happening. But you're getting girls right now that are 12 years old sending pictures of them in their bathing suits by a pool, which is super innocent, right? But those pictures and images are now being sold on the dark web. They don't even know. That's a form of exploitation. You're exploiting that 12-year-old girl on the dark web, and she has no idea, right? And that's like the very lowest level of it. That's where it starts. It is an innocent, like, oh, I'm in a bikini with my family at the swimming pool in public. Why would it matter if I send a picture of me in my bikini to this boy that's on Facebook or Instagram? But it's not a boy. And there's people that are sick out there that want to see 12-year-olds in their bathing suits. And that's where it starts. And it gets worse from there. But it's happening. Trust me. We'll know more. We've been in meetings, like I said, with the law enforcement there in Sweden. And hopefully they accept our offer, because we just want to provide them free resources. And then we'll go in and we can help do some investigative work there and see how it's happening. Unfortunately, I'm not saying this about Sweden, I'm just giving you an example in the past, is they don't like this to be known because they rely on tourism. And if this is happening in these places, people won't want to go there. And so they want to keep it hush hush. And so we've run into that issue many times. They're like, well, one, it's not happening here. They say that. And then we say, well, can you give us one day to provide a case? And then we can go undercover with our cameras and stuff and then present them a case. And one, they actually believe that it's not happening and they're shocked. And then they want to do something about it because they actually didn't know, because they didn't know how to look for it or what to do. Or two, they don't want to, because they don't want to ruin the tourism, because they rely on that money from tourists.
Yeah. That's so crazy. So what can we, or what can the Swedish people do to help you get into Sweden, to start help the Swedish police and start some kind of getting together? What can the Swedish people and we do to help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we're already working and we have the relationships in some of the law enforcement there, but any relationships at any level, whether it's government or law enforcement, that people can start talking to or introduce us to. But I think as a community and as a country, you have to start talking about this. You have to start, like you said, raising awareness is so important, because when you start telling people and then they tell 2 people and then they tell 3 people, and then this is how it ended in the United States. Slavery was legal for a long time in the United States. And when the war turned into a slavery issue, the Civil War, it was because people were finding out about it and said, this is enough. The people said, stop. And they were writing books and they were talking about it. And there was the Underground Railroad. That's where we got our name, you know, where people were talking about this. And the people have to get loud enough to wake the governments up to say, man, we need to do something about this, right?
Yeah.
Because the people want it. And we need the newspapers, like you said, we need the media to talk about it. And I think it's important. This actually is very important. When you see an article, even though it's hard to share, talk about children who have been trafficked, if you share that article and it gets more clicks, because media is all about clickbait, they're baiting you with, you know, the one sentence so that you'll click on there and they'll get more traffic, and then advertisers want to do advertising. But if we're saying that that's what we want to see, we want to see there's more kids being rescued, we want to know about that, maybe they'll start talking about it more and it'll become normal conversation. Where right now, I would say a majority of people don't even know there is trafficking. They for sure don't know how it's happening. And they definitely don't know it's happening right in front of their face in their communities. You know, we have a website in the United States called familywatchdog.us, where you can type your address in, and it's a government website that shows you where all the people who were arrested, convicted, and then registered as a sex offender. Wow. Not everybody registers, which is a crime. Not everybody gets convicted, and definitely most have not been arrested yet for it because we don't have the resources. But just of those people, it would blow your mind how many people living around you. And it tells you if they actually just had photos of child sex abuse material, or if they actually abused a child in a certain way. And it's everywhere. And you can just test it out. Put it anywhere in the United States. Just come up with an address. And you can click on the map. And you can start seeing that. And it is a lot of people out there. So if you think it's not happening, it's happening. It is definitely happening. And it's unfortunate. There's not a profile that you can say, oh, they look like this. This is where they come from. No, they're teachers, coaches, you know, judges. You know, they're all different areas and walks of life. You know, if you watch the documentary, it's happening right here. You'll see this girl tell her story about, you know, she was young before she started puberty. And these guys who were married in suits and ties would come and, you know, they would have sex and then they would leave. And she knew that they had a wife and kids. And who knew what they were, an attorney, or who knew they were a businessman, you know? And then she ended up aging out. Once she hit puberty, these guys don't want her anymore. They have a sickness and they're hiding it. You know, and now the internet has so much access to all this material, and they're starting people younger to get these dopamines and these adrenaline things that are going on when they're being sexualized inside their bodies, creating these feelings, and they're acting on the feelings that are in the access to it is incredibly easy. You know, a 5-year-old has access to a phone or a computer, they can find child pornography online. It's absurd and insane. And maybe that's another thing that you could do in your country and the world needs to do is we need to create laws that won't, you know, the mind-blowing thing to me personally, that outside of OUR, just on a personal level, the fact that a child has such easy access to pornography online and to images and all this stuff is like, I don't know, when did that happen? Because when I was a kid, it was like in the back of a room, and they wouldn't even show the cover. You had to like show an ID, and like, there's like hidden, right? Nobody can see it. That's a shame, and it's a sin.
But now it's the opposite. Now it's like in the schools, it's like they start to teach kids when they are in the very small to what's like to be a sexual being when you are super small in the schools. It's crazy.
It is.
This is also what's happening with that. I read it now in Sweden, like you can go to a camp and it's no, and you doesn't matter how old you are, you can be kind of 5 and find out if you are a guy or a girl. This trans thing, this is so weird in Sweden.
Yeah,
That's
so crazy.
what are you doing? LFSL, it's the name of it. And how can parents send them there when you're 6 years? Are you trying to understand if you're a girl or a boy? I mean, that's so sick.
Well, and I'll tell you what's sick is the public doesn't realize that all these predators and pedophiles love it, because they've been trying to do this for years, you know? And now the governments are doing everything that they've been trying to do for decades, and they love it. They're just sitting back there going, oh, baby, this is perfect. Get kids to know about sex as young as they can, because then we can prey on them. And then you know what? They're going to identify as a 12-year-old. I may be a 50-year-old man, but I identify as a 12-year-old. And then the 12-year-old, why can't you identify as a 40-year-old woman? You know, you could be that. That's
so crazy. So that's also have to stop. And also we need to do something, and people have to know. Like now is when I starting to say, but this is so stupid, and don't know if you're a guy or a girl, blah blah blah, when you're 11, 12, but you don't know who you are when you are a teenager.
right.
I mean, that's the thing. Should I start to think what kind of who I am, if I'm a guy or girl? It's so stupid. And now you couldn't even say it because but you are old. This is the new. Like, no, it's just stupid.
Yeah. It's an interesting place we're in, and that's why I think educating the public and letting people know the reality and how that harms a child, because they're trying to figure things out, and now you're manipulating them or exposing them to things where their minds are they're not even formed fully. The brain hasn't fully formed yet.
Yeah.
And you talk about trauma, and we know firsthand what trauma does to children, especially when their brains are still forming, and how that impacts them lifelong. It's unbelievable what's happening. It's truly, to me, it's unbelievable. So,
but it's also like the parents to these kids who send the kids to like the camp or what it is, like they are also brainwashed. So
yeah,
how can you do it without not knowing where they're going? So that's crazy. Do you have kids, Nate?
I do. I have 2 boys, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
2-year-old. Wow.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it changes you a little bit, doing this type of work, and you have your own kids. I think it's so hard to see children when you have children of your own, and you see them, and you just wish that every child could have what your child has, and to have the not just freedom, but just joy and the simple things in life, where so many kids don't. And that's why we really do what we do is we think that all kids deserve to have their childhood.
Yeah. And also I remember that Tim said that all kids are my kids.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Well, and a little bit, and I don't know how much time we have, but an interesting thing about that I think is really important to know is that at one point he was told by a therapist, stop putting your kids' faces on these kids. It's tearing you apart. And so he did. And it wasn't until the kids that he ended up adopting that he went back and put his kids' faces on them. And he realized you have to, because if it was your kid, there's nothing you wouldn't do. Yeah. And so you have to have that mentality, because even I think a year ago in a dangerous country in cartel-ridden areas, they changed location at the last minute for this child. And most of the team was saying, we can't go there. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. And Tim, and this on video, he said, what if it was your child? Would you go there? Of course, everybody says, well, if it was my child, I certainly would. And he's like, then we're going. Because they have to be all of our children. Because if we're not coming for them, no one is.
Nice.
So,
wow, I got goosebumps on my body.
Yeah.
Wow, it's beautiful.
And now you have to tell us about also the film. The Israeli is going to be on the theater in the States, 4th of July.
Yes. It's called The Sound of Freedom. And it's the story of Tim Ballard when he was at the government and the frustrations that he had, why he said, I'm quitting the government and I'm going to give up my pension and give up everything and pray to God that this nonprofit's going to work because there's kids. It's actually his wife. It's beautiful part of it is like, you have to. Those kids need you. Like if the government's not going to let you go do this, then you need to go do it on your own. And so it's the story of that. And then it's actually 1/3 of the real documentary we'll release later called Triple Take. It's an Emmy Award-winning documentary already. And where we took down in one country, 3 simultaneous cities, we took down a huge, massive ring of traffickers and rescued over 120 kids. And these guys saw the story and said, man, that sounds like, who is this guy? What's going on? And they're like, why is there not a movie about this? So they made this movie. So it's on Angel Studios. They have a pretty successful show called The Chosen, but it'll be on their app. It's free. Not on the 4th of July. It'll be in theaters. I don't know how many countries, but eventually how Angel Studios works is it's a pay it forward thing. So it's free to everyone. The app, all their shows, all their content. And if you think that other people need to see it, like in the theaters in the US, you can buy other people's tickets so that you can have them go see the movie. And that's how it works too. So you can watch it for free when it's available on their app, on their streaming device. And if you love the movie or the content or any of their content and you think other people need to see it, then you can pay it forward and pay for somebody else so that they can continue to create this type of content.
Wow.
That's
Angel
beautiful.
Studios. Yeah, angel.com/SOF is Sound of Freedom is where you can find more information. You can watch the trailer. It's important to us. We don't own the movie. We get no benefit from it at all, but hopefully the world will see the reality of what's going on. And then they'll want to do something about it. And we're already set up in place all over the world in 6 regions and many countries for them to be able to help, hopefully nearby their own country or in the country that they're actually living in. And they can actually help make a difference there. That's our hope. The hope is to get more fundraisers, to get more money into the resources into these countries so more kids can be rescued and more predators can be arrested. We want to have our 10,000th arrest this year if we can. It's our 10-year anniversary. And our 10,000th rescue, we'll take either one of those. And we need to do more, but we need more light. We can only do so much, So, we're expanding our nonprofit into different countries around the world to try to take this thing, the fundraising side as well, to a bigger part of the world to hopefully make a bigger impact around the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're going to Sweden.
Yeah.
You know what? I had a feeling, Annette, that maybe they will do a movie about us because we are the crazy women in Sweden that rent a big arena and just go bananas.
It's quite possible.
Who is the producer of the film, The Sound of Freedom?
Eduardo Velasquez. He is from Mexico. He's an actor. He's in the movie. He plays a very wealthy businessman in the movie, which is a true part of the story. And him and a couple of guys raised the money, from some amazing people who thought, I'm not just going to invest in this movie as a way to make money. I'm investing into the movie because the world needs to see this and the world needs to know about it. And so he got a team of guys to put the money in to make this movie. I mean, when you read the script and you see the story, and I want people to know this topic is very difficult, but the way the director and these guys made this movie, it's very tastefully done. You don't see anything graphic. You don't, I mean, it is a hard subject matter, but it's done so well, which is so hard to do with this type of material, to make it, palatable for the audience, but at the same time expose them to the truth and make them at the end of the movie say, I have to do something.
Yeah,
I have to get involved. And I got it. So we're hoping that's the case,
Yeah, and the main character, Jim, what's the name of him again?
Jim Caviezel, he plays Tim Ballard.
Yeah.
He was in The Count of Monte Cristo. He played Jesus in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. So he's a good friend of mine. He's the one who invited me down to the movie. I worked with him for a decade, and that's how I learned about OUR. And it's interesting to see the worlds colliding again.
It's coming back.
He's been a good friend of mine for such a long time, and just an important part of my life. And now Tim is such an important part of my life, and to see the two worlds colliding right now is interesting.
So who is playing Nate Lewis?
There is no Nate Lewis.
But you can decide yourself. So it's like
okay. Oh
wow, yeah.
So how many people work in OR, Operation Underground Regular now?
Yeah, we have about 120 full-time employees, and we have about 50 to 60 contractors around the world.
Okay, yeah.
What's contractors? What's the meaning with a contractor?
Yeah, so contractor will be on maybe a case per basis, or if there's a case going on somewhere, we'll contract them to go in for a short amount of time, or case by case. Kind of, we have certain contractors that aren't on full time, even though they do a lot of work for us in country. They don't have the benefits. We need to get, really a lot of it is we're trying to get registered in so many countries as an incorporation, and to be in that until it's legally set up in those countries. We can have employees in those countries so we can contract people. I think there's a legal piece to it of all that. That's my understanding of it all. But we've got 30 full-time employees just in Thailand.
Wow.
Just in Thailand alone. We've done amazing work in Thailand in the last 7 years. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. They are kind of the role model of what we're modeling the rest of the world around, of what we've done in Thailand. And we've been told we've literally changed Thailand. 7 years ago, you could go pretty much anywhere in the red light district and find a child under the age of 18, or now it's nearly impossible. You can still in the fishing villages find them, but it's nearly impossible. And the risk is insane. Because we've created so much risk. We'll shut places down like constantly. As soon as there's a minor, so now the restaurants and the bar owners and stuff, they're not even messing with minors. Now there's still a major issue in Thailand, but at least it's not children. Our focus is children. We're not going to leave an adult behind if we're doing a rescue, but we believe that it's the children that we need to protect and we need to help, because they're the most innocent. And most of the time, even as adults, a lot of them are not volunteers, they're victims. But most of the time, the children are definitely not volunteering. They're victims of trafficking.
So I think people need to hear again. So all the money that you have done, that donates to you, go directly to the kids?
In some shape or form. Part of it goes to law enforcement to help them, with equipment and training and certain things to help with the arrest. And our operations team, who does undercover work, we got all the undercover operators, special agents that go in and pretend they're traffickers and infiltrate these organizations and arrest them. So part of the money goes to that. Most of it goes to the healing journey is what we call it. Once they're rescued, they have this journey of healing. And then we have a really small piece, still really tiny, the adoption portion of what we do. We call Children Need Families. And that was from Tim and his wife, through their adoption, how difficult it was and how expensive it is. We're the largest single grant provider for adoptions. Most are pretty low financial support, but we not only give the largest financial support for adoptions, but we help with the entire process of the adoption. That's another prevention piece too, because we're working with, unfortunately, some of the children we work with have special needs, and they become easier targets. They're easily taken advantage of because of, whatever mental handicap they are physically or mentally. And so we look at this as like, how do we get these kids into, not all of them have been trafficked, but they could be if they're not taken out of the situation that they're in. And so a lot of these orphanages, they're targets, So how do we get them into loving homes? And there's so many families out there that want kids. And so how do we just connect the people who want the kids and the kids that need the loving families, and then just connect them? So that's a small portion of what we do.
That's a small part. Yeah, because I think that's important for all people, all you who listen and see this this tape need to know that the money goes directly to the children, to the kids, and also that it's happening also in Sweden. So just wake up, be aware. It's like we have to have this up to the, what do you say, over the surface to bring it up.
But I'm wondering about what Tim, because he's not afraid. I mean, a lot of people know, and you too, what you're doing. Are you not afraid to get kidnapped or shot or something? I mean, the work you're doing, how are you not afraid to be?
Well, I would say that it'd be very difficult to find somebody who would say at some point they're not afraid. There's always some sort of calculated risk that's involved. I mean, you're dealing with criminal organizations. Some of them are, you got corrupt police. You've got cartels you're dealing with. You've got gangs. So it's definitely dangerous. We were fortunate enough last week to get someone that we've worked with for a very long time released after 6 weeks of being held captive. So there's definitely some risk involved, I would say. And I think that we're protected in some sort of way, shape, or form, but we also are very organized. We have safety teams, we have protocols, we have briefings, we have plans. We know where the embassies are, where the hospitals are. We have escape routes. It's all done. Very, very high performing, detailed plans of how this goes. And I can't give away all the secrets, but it's not just a bunch of people going in hoping for the best. It's very strategically planned, and there's teams in place. They all have specific roles. It's very calculated.
Yeah, but Nate, do you need for your family some kind of special security or safety or something, protection?
I do, just because I live kind of out in the middle of nowhere with the dirt road and a gate and dogs, and we have alarms and protection, and so I'm not very concerned about it, to be honest with you. I think somebody like Tim is more of a target for sure. He has security and definitely has secure house in many ways. We have had death threats. Organizations that we've taken down on the dark web have announced publicly to execute anybody that works for OUR, that we're taking away their freedoms to love children. So there are definitely death threats. One of the Hidden War, which Kyle Cease is going to be a producer on, is coming out this year. It started in Ukraine. It ended up in Ecuador, where I was last week. And unfortunately, that big, large pedophile ring that was trying to legalize sex with children when we arrested him in Mexico City, he's still in prison. He's still sending death threats and telling all of his followers, that we need to kill Tim Ballard and OUR. And so there's definitely some security concerns. Tim's going undercover a lot less. And if he does, he's in a disguise, but he's probably not going to be able to do that so much anymore. It's just, especially with the movie coming out, everybody's going to know about him, look him up. And I think he's going to have to retire that hat. But him and I have had conversations. He's got to do more things like this, where he can get out and talk about it and do events and do podcasts where that's going to help rescue, his heart. You guys saw him. His heart, the reason why he did this is because he wanted to rescue kids. He goes into the darkest, worst places to help kids, and he feels like he's not going to be able to do that. And I'm like, yes, you can, because you could go on podcasts and you can go to these events and you can talk about it and get more people to come help rescue kids. You don't have to be the one doing it. And hopefully, I think he's coming around to that. He just has to be careful because we need him.
Yeah,
right?
need him. Yeah.
The world need all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also you, Nate.
Yeah.
And it's also so because I know the 1st of the October the 1st, you will come to Stockholm.
Yes.
On the stage of the big event, the Changemakers Day. And
I'm still trying to get Tim. I can't count him out.
Tim. And also Tim.
I'm trying.
Yeah, we also. Otherwise, we come and pick him up.
All right. And I can probably bring a regional director from Europe who was just in Stockholm meeting with the police. He might be a good person just to have there as well. For people to talk to and meet and ask questions. And
Yeah. We have to put light on this darkness.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you, Nate. And we are so it's so nice to talk to you. And I know all the people listen.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look, we're so grateful. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not just saying that for me. I'm saying that from kids who have told me thank you. And I was like, oh, it's not me. I don't know. Don't thank me. And literally looked me in the eyes and said, whoever you need to thank for making this possible, please thank them. So I'm thanking you from the children, because truly you, no doubt, I imagine, will make a difference in at least one, maybe many lives by what you're doing right now and what you're about to do in October. So I'm just saying thank you to you guys, because you're a part of the family and the army, right?
I start crying. Thank you.
But no, I mean, I hope you really know that. I hope you know that.
Yeah.
It's not us. People thank us all the time, but we thank you because we wouldn't even be able to do anything without you guys.
Yeah. Then we thank all of us.
Yes, it's us. It's a team. It's all of us. It takes every one of us.
Yeah. It's really a team. I love that. We do it together. Yeah.
It's morning in LA. You are in LA somewhere, I think.
I'm not in LA, but I'm on LA time.
Okay. So it's morning here. It's afternoon. You have a good day.
Yes, I will. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This has been amazing. It's so good to see you guys. We will be talking, I'm sure, many more times soon. And then I look forward to seeing you in October. And let us know if there's if I can bring somebody on, if you want to talk to somebody else, or maybe even an aftercare, we can talk to somebody, it can get, maybe the gal that runs our Europe division, or there's lots of people for you to talk about and share. And we're just so thankful for you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. We will. Promise you.
We will. And thank you, all the listeners and all the, what do you say, watchers? I don't know. So I will just end the recording now and say thanks to all of you, and thanks to you, Forslund, Annette, and also Nate. And say hello to all the others on the Operation Underground Railroad from Sweden.
We will. I will. Thank you, guys.